It's a common problem. Cities around the country have a lot of empty police uniforms to fill, and the problems are getting worse. This has gone on for at least the last 5 years. Some people look at the protests of the George Floyd case as well as issues with mental health. City of Dallas has a mandate to hire 900 more police officers and keep a force of 4,000 cops. On today's Ask the Expert, we're joined by Dr. Alex Del Carmen from Tarleton State. He is in the KRLD Zoom room. Dr. Del Carmen, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks for having me, David.
So when we grew up as kids, one of the career goals that virtually everyone had was to be a police officer, a firefighter, an astronaut, or a doctor. What changed?
Many things have changed since. For starters, I think many of us, used to put in the law enforcement job or perspective in a pedestal. We thought it was a great job, TJ Hooker and various other shows that we grew up watching. It really led us to believe that this was all about the heroes that don't wear any capes. And unfortunately, in the past few years, we've seen a change.
When did the bloom fall off that rose?
I think it's been gradually happening, right? So it started about maybe 10, 15 years ago, and we've seen it sort of erode, throughout the years. But I would say that George Floyd's death probably was the one that caused the most significant impact on law enforcement as it relates to recruitment. And now we're seeing the end of that, which is unfortunately that we can hardly hire people and keep people in law enforcement.
What is it about that case that triggered so many people? Is it just the actual heinous activity of what those officers have now been convicted of, what they did?
David, I think that most people that are reasonable, they know that law enforcement, for the most part, is not made up of the individuals that on that particular day took action against Mr. Floyd. I mean, I think most of us know that the majority of law enforcement are made up of honest, decent, hardworking people, right? That they just want to come home alive that afternoon or evening or morning after a long shift. But I think what we are seeing is that many people, when they saw that incident, they realized the legal liability that many law enforcement officers carry with them by just being merely present during the mishaps, if you want to call it that, or the misbehavior of some of the police officers that should have never been cops. And then in other cases where you saw that, police officers in Minneapolis that were doing a great job, that were working for the city, that got a chance to then be associated with these individuals that did something that engaged in a crime, basically, on that particular afternoon, are being associated as being part of the problem, and unjustifiably so, right? So I think that many people began to see law enforcement for what it is, which is an extraordinarily difficult career vocation that is done really because of somebody's generosity in their heart to try to put their lives before somebody else's.
And of course, after that, we had all the troubles with all the political nature of things, where people calling to defund the police, and that just has to add more to the negative stereotype.
There's no question. And so what ended up happening was when people then began to generalize and to say all law enforcement must be corrupt, all law enforcement must be racist, right? Which is obviously inaccurate. When they began to do that, then politicians responded accordingly by saying, well, let's go ahead and take their funding away. I mean, there were some serious conversations that people were having about having municipalities without law enforcement. I objected then, and I object to that idea now, because law enforcement is necessary in our democracy to keep law and order, right? But I mean, all these hypotheses and the negative social construct of what law enforcement was really affected the young people that were coming up. I mean, I see that in college, right? As a college professor, we see it all the time, where we see these young people that want to be cops when they're 18, 19 years old. And then when they turn to be 21 or 22, at the time that they're actually eligible to enter the police academy, they say, wait, never mind. I think I'm going to find something else that pays me better, has more flexibility in terms of hours, and is less risky.
How much does television or movies play into this? Because you see so many TV shows and films about bad cops.
I think a lot of it, right? Because I mean, Hollywood, they make money off, things that make us uncomfortable or make us nervous or make us feel weird when we're watching it. And I think that, they're not gonna portray a good cop that goes out there on his or her beat and does a great job. They want to portray somebody that's corrupt, somebody that's taking bribes, somebody that's doing this and the other. So Hollywood sells tickets, right, to go to the movies to see the action heroes and the good cops taking over the bad cops. So that really does affect the psychic of young people. But I will tell you, David, what I think has been the culprit behind all of this is social media publicity, more so than movies, where your generation and mine were affected by that the most because we didn't have the social media that these young people have now. But man, they watch these YouTube videos of police officers across the globe that are doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And then they generalize and say, well, all police officers must be this way. Why would I want to be part of that?
Yeah. And what's it like for the departments themselves as they're trying to recruit people to come into their department, not only entering their police academy, but getting other officers to transfer from other cities?
It's incredibly frustrating. I talk to many cops, as you know, on a daily basis, and many of my good friends are police chiefs across the state of Texas and throughout the country, and they tell me constantly that they're struggling to be able to bring good law enforcement officers on board. Some of them have gone as far as going to places like Puerto Rico and, going to California or going to places where, perhaps the standard of living is expensive and trying to advertise the idea that if you move to Texas, for instance, it's going to be, a cheaper lifestyle where you can get paid, good money and live a nice life. And so they're being successful in some cases, but all police departments, literally 28,000 of them, are competing as to who's going to get the better person to be hired, and some of them are running on deficits.
How do technology? How does technology help as far as upgrading technology for better police work? Does that attract more people to a certain department than, say, someone that's not really that upgraded?
I would say that it does to some degree, but we have to really understand the nature of the job for you to understand what technology really does to the job, right? I would argue that technology has really helped police departments advertise their positions. I would argue that technology has really helped police departments, note the fact that they're doing sign-up bonuses, that they're bringing people in with X number of years of credit, towards retirement when they bring them on board. We call those lateral transfers, right? People that already have law enforcement experience that are being brought into other police departments. So technology is helping them do that. I know that Fort Worth, Dallas, and various other departments are doing these skits that they're doing on video, where they're actually showing it on social media, on X, and various others, where they have these sort of playful back and forth, between both departments in an effort to try to increase good visibility, promote their police department, and hopefully recruit some people to come in.
Do nights like National Night Out, does that actually help with recruitment, let alone just being able to communicate with the community?
I think it makes an impact on the community to remind them that law enforcement is there. Obviously, community relations are really, really important as it relates to law enforcement. So, like the HOAs and various entities, night watches, et cetera, they all come together and they greet and feed many of the police officers that are in that particular beat. Whether or not it actually does something to impact recruitment, I'm not sure. I think a lot of the young people are not going to probably be hanging out with the senior citizens that oftentimes are part of the HOAs that are going to be sitting down with the senior members of the police staff talking about yesterday's problems. I think that the young people are going to be interested more in terms of, is this going to pay for college? Why should I do this in the context of my career? Where is technology going to take us? Is AI ever going to take over the human factor in law enforcement? And why should I join the ranks of law enforcement today when it's so risky, when I can lose everything that I ever worked for? And most people end up in a divorce. It has the highest divorce rate, highest alcoholism rate, highest suicide rate than any other profession out there. So why would I want to enter that, right? And so, but we're forgetting that there are people, in spite of those challenges, that see law enforcement as a vocation. They don't see it as a career. And so by virtue of that, it doesn't matter to them that he has all of these things. Of course, they affect them. But at the end of the day, they're doing it because they truly, truly believe that what they're doing is to better society. And they're doing the most unselfish act that a human being can do, which is put their lives at risk for the love of their brothers and sisters.